Also another special day. We had Megan's birthday yesterday, but it's Taylor's birthday today. So Taylor is actually on her way to Limara as we speak. I think she has landed in Kenya. So a very happy birthday to Taylor, and I hope she has an awesome day. It sounds like she's been having a bit of trouble already at the airport. I think with luggage, the joys of traveling through Africa. I hope it all gets sorted. But have a wonderful day, Taylor, from everyone here at Djuma. We're wishing you a very happy birthday, and I'm sure a lot of the viewers will all be wishing you a happy birthday too. Such a little bit longer because there's some wonderful interaction going on here still. But let's head across to Scotty D, who apparently is still sitting with that wonderful serval. I'm very jealous.
Okay, we are going to have to reposition shortly, but yes, we are still with the serval, and I can't believe it. By far the best sighting I've ever had of one of these awesome animals, and happy to hear that there's some good action over with Byron, the vultures and the hyena. I'm hoping to try and get some frontal views for you guys of the serval, but like I said, I'm just being as gentle as possible, and we're in no rush. And the main thing that we do not want to do is make the serval think that us Safari Live guides don't know what we're doing. So we're going to be very extra cautious, keeping our distance, letting Dave work his magic with the camera and the zoom rather than getting the vehicle too close to it. I'm really interested to know how much longer it's going to be on the move for, because I'm guessing it may have had a busy night. Like we said earlier, they are probably more prone to nocturnal activity when the cover of darkness will assist them with their hunting. Okay, I just want to creep around this one more bush and then stop and wait in the hope that it's going to come to these bushes next. It's definitely going from bush to bush, so whatever prey it's hoping on securing for breakfast, I'm guessing lives in these little thickets, because it's literally systematically going from thicket to check for any possible options. Now, what's interesting now with this view is you'll notice that they've got a short tail. They don't have a very long tail like most cats do. And Haley, you would like to know what cats are servals related to. I don't have a clue, but let me get my book out quickly. The smallest... Oh, no, that's the wrong animal. I was just about to tell you what's happening about a cat called the sand cat, which is a very interesting cat that you get in North Africa. Okay. I'm not sure what other cats it is related to. Similar species, it says leopard, cheetah, and the golden cat. Okay, well, thank you very much to James Henry, who knows a little bit more about the taxonomic breakdown of this creature, and he says that it is closely related to the caracal, the African wildcats, and even the domestic house cats, due to its genus. So thank you for that information, James. Okay. So let's just wait here. It is directly behind a bush, but we're just going to have to take a little bit of a gamble in the hope that it makes its way out once it is made sure that there's no potential snacks hiding in there from it. Unless, of course, it's decided to plonk itself down and decided to take a bit of a break here, which is quite possible. The good news is James has got himself a lioness who is eyeballing some breakfast.
They are eyeballing some breakfast. They're eyeballing some zebra, but I'm not sure that they're actually very serious about hunting. I still think that they've got something lying about here that they might want to eat, that they've killed already. And the cubs underneath that big tree there. And I wonder if we don't have a lioness sneaking towards them through this long grass. I'm going to scan with my powerful binoculars. Let's see if I can't see the telltale black tip of the ear, or perhaps the tail. The telltale tail. Tail. They're definitely watching the zebra with some intent, but I don't see any zebra foals, which makes me think that perhaps they won't hunt here, but I might be wrong. It's definitely worth sitting around to wait and see. Alright, I think that we're going to go back across to Baron, because apparently his hyenas, unlike these lions, are enjoying their breakfast.
We've still got, excuse me, I've still got vultures, and some of the vultures sunning their wings, trying to dry off a little bit. Hyenas still carrying bits and pieces of the carcass away. Actually, Senzo, have a look just off to my right. Quickly, here comes one hyena. There we go, look at that. Carrying, looks like a hip bone, actually, is it? I wonder where that is going. The pelvis. Part of the pelvis, I think. Now, I've had questions like this before in the past. And people often ask, well, you know, why don't we see these carcasses more often or more regularly? Or why are the bones spread out? Well, there's the answer right there. The hyenas pick and feed, and they'll carry parts of the carcass and different sections of bones and spread it out a lot, and also helps kind of degrade the carcass a little bit. Other little animals will feed on it and that, and you'll see that probably the horns and the skull will stay around here, and the rest of the carcass. But you see how lots of it can get carried away because of the hyena and other predators. It's always interesting to see. I mean, we've been fortunate. We've seen this scene now from start to finish, and how it's changed, how the carcass has been dragged around by the lions, how the hyenas have fed on it, how the vultures have picked those ribs clean. And like I said, there might still be some other little creatures which benefit off of this kill. Now, Nikki, it's a possibility that hyenas might take bits and pieces back to the den. Sometimes they regurgitate a bit of food too, I think, for the cubs. But they do. They don't take a lot back. They don't take huge pieces of meat in that back. But now and then they'll take the odd bone or little bits and pieces of a carcass. They will carry it back to the den, but it doesn't happen as often as people would think. Well, you'll only see small bits and pieces of bone around a den, not often big pieces of carcass. Anna Marie, I don't think it's a case of the hyena needing more calcium than other animals. The hyena, I think calcium is just a big part of their diet, the calcium and phosphorus from the bones, because they are scavengers. They probably don't get as much meat as the lions do, for example, so slightly different diets, just in terms of the amount of meat and bone in comparison to lion, but I don't think it's a case that they need more calcium than any of the other predators. Remember, lion and leopard will also get calcium and phosphorus from the smaller bones that they crunch on. I think it's just the hyena have evolved to have these very strong, powerful jaws, and they'll feed on some of the bones and crush them and break them. It's not a case of them needing it more than the other predators. Michael, you asked if the carcass and the bones benefit the bush in any way. No, Michael, I don't think so. And I assume you mean the vegetation. So no, it wouldn't. Out here, the plant material and the trees and that, they get the nutrients and everything they need from the earth itself, from the ground. They don't need what's the word? They don't need fertilizer, put it that way. So the only thing that would benefit were the small insects and that around, and the ecosystem, I suppose, the smaller animals. So from the lions, I suppose, the lions, the vultures, the hyena, the insects, other smaller little the scavengers will come around, possibly a jackal or two. Those will all benefit from these carcasses, but the bones being scattered around, that doesn't benefit the bush in any way. Well, not in a major way, put it that way. It's not that you're going to get a huge amount of grass growing in this area now because there's been a carcass around. I'm just going to try reposition a little bit for us and see if I can now get a little bit closer. There we go. How's that, Senzo? Alright, well, we're going to sit here a little bit longer because this is such a great sighting, something different. And let's head across to James, who's apparently got a very well hidden lion.
We do have hidden lions, everyone, but we're just trying to figure out where the adults are. You think that's an adult or a cub? Adult. It is an adult, yes. Well, there they are. They're snoozing in the bushes there. So the hunt is not quite on, unfortunately. And much as I'd love to tell you that it's going to be in the next 5 minutes, I don't think that is necessarily the case. And so I'm going to give them another 2 minutes sitting where they are, and then we're going to go closer. Because at the moment we're at the end of the lens and we're not really gaining a huge amount from this. Now I do apologize for the wind noise. You're getting wind noise because it is windy. And it's windy just about every day here at the moment. I'm not sure why, but I think there's a front moving in. It was very clear this morning, and now it's clouded over, as you can see from the light. So I do apologize for the wind noise that there is. I'll try and move my microphone the next time that we are off air. We'll also try and get a bit closer to those lions, I think, because I don't think they're on the hunt at all anymore. I was just saying to Manu, I think that they would probably be much more enthusiastic about catching something if we had a whole lot of wildebeest around as opposed to just zebra. But they're still watching. Anna Marie, you want to know if they are bigger than the Nkahuma lionesses. I was just saying I think that they are probably stockier, so they might be slightly heavier. I don't think they're as tall though. I think that they are, well, maybe the same height at the shoulder. I get the impression though that the Nkahumas are slightly taller and these ones are slightly stockier. They've definitely got bigger, boxier ears though than these Mara lions. And I don't think, I mean, if we look at buffalo, for example, yeah, the buffalo here are probably larger. The impala are definitely larger. The lions, I don't think they are. And I don't think that you'll find many of the other animals are either. Well, James Richard, you reckon that these lions should possibly be taller because of the long grass, and they should have adapted to that. Remember, James, this grass is not this length all year round. And there are also patches of the Kruger and the Sabi sand, especially on the Gabbro, where the grass gets this long and even longer. So, I mean, I get where your logic is going, but I think that you'll find on the whole that the need to be tall is not necessarily any greater here than it is in the Kruger. That is quite an interesting thought, though. And I mean, certainly Scott was talking about looking over the top of the grass and how difficult it must be for something like a serval. Even for these lions, it is not easy. And of course, the animal best adapted to looking over the grass is, Manu? Dun, dun, dun. No, the human being. Because we stand much taller with our eyes over the top of the grass. We don't have to put our heads down to graze, and we're very well adapted to looking over the tops of an environment of the vegetation in an environment like this. And certainly there is an argument to say that's one of the reasons that we stand on 2 feet, because we are, of course, the only mammal that is bipedal by default and totally incompetent when moving around on all fours. And that required an enormous number of physiological sacrifices, one of which, of course, was the narrowing of the birth canal, which makes it so difficult or so dangerous for human beings to give birth. So there were clearly some enormous adaptive advantages to being on foot. Now, let's go back. I can just see a little bit of movement there, Manu, if you don't mind. Can we go back to the lions? Not a great deal. I think let's move closer in there and see if we can't get a better view of exactly what's going on with the sausages. Righty, let's move around there. Just before we do that though, just through here, you can see a path, a sort of road, that's been worn over the course of the season by wildebeest and zebra moving along. And I think it's quite interesting because I think they reuse it very often. And eventually these things become highways. And there's at one spot, way down to the south of here and right close to the escarpment, that looks like and I'm not kidding here, it looks like a 3-lane highway. That's how wide it is, with these paths moving away from the escarpment towards the salt lick. Now, as I said before, I don't want to ruin anyone's photographs, so we're going to gently move through here. And while we do that, I believe that apparently Byron has got some very settled vultures that he would like to show you.
That looks a bit better. Now these hyena are still busy feeding away, just two of them. Now, some of you were asking if one of the hyena looked pregnant. I'm trying to look around. The one that we saw earlier did have a very large belly, and there's a possibility, but I'm not sure. I didn't have a good look at it. There was so much going on, but the one did look like it did have a rather large belly, so possibly another pregnant hyena. You can hear those jaws still chewing of that hyena, chewing some of the sinew and the and cartilage. Actually, I think that's what it's into there now, of that buffalo. So the hyena are built for this type of feeding, and those very strong jaws, powerful jaws. The hyena's got this really large neck and head. I know James has been touching on the skeletal system and that a little bit of various animals and human beings, but the hyena, those long necks, powerful or very muscular necks, and very large heads. The skulls of the hyena very, very large, but the reason is mainly because there's a lot of muscle which runs actually right around their head, and that helps with those powerful jaws. It gives them the power they need for those jaws to crunch bone. Also the sloping back of the hyena. They've got the shorter back legs, longer front legs. Reason for that again is the power, the powerful front legs carries the heavy muscular neck and head. And also the theory is that this slight slope at the back allows long distance running to be a bit easier. And the hyena they're not known for their speed, but they can cover quite a distance, walking and running around, scavenging, looking for food. You can actually see that bit of a slope in the back. It slopes down towards the hind quarters. Our vultures were busy sunning themselves, trying to dry those wings off a little bit. It sounds like Scott has got a vulture who's feeling the chill of the Mara.
It certainly is looking a little bit chilly, and it's also got some interesting accessories, and that some down feathers are caught in its eye. So it's got that funny little bit of fluff there. You can see a little bit of blood around the base of its neck, so it looks like it may have already had a successful morning snacking, and it is now just chilling out in this tree, hoping for some warm rays of the sun. But it appears like the clouds have moved in over the Mara, and I'm not sure we're going to be getting much more sunshine today. I always wonder about the dynamics and social movements of these vultures. Very often you find them sitting together in trees, even when they're not necessarily on a kill. Yet this guy obviously needs some time away from the flocks, some time to think about things, or maybe it's just embarrassed that it's got this down feather stuck in its eye, and that's why it's all alone. Obviously not too perturbed by it. It could, I think, relatively easily rub its eye with that long neck onto its wings to get that down feather out. You can also see how well developed they are now that we've got a good close-up view, with a very, very bare neck, which doesn't get very dirty when they're feeding on bloody carcasses. But they do have those scarf-like rough feathers that you can see blowing in the wind at the base of the neck that assist in keeping its neck warm like a scarf. Beautiful, beautiful feathers. Hello, Molly. You'd like to know if ostriches are related to vultures due to their long necks. And no, I don't think they are. I think the reason that they have long necks is for different purposes, both for feeding, but the fact that the ostrich has got such long legs means it needs a long neck to be able to reach its food on the ground, whereas the vulture doesn't have long legs. It's got very short, stumpy legs, but it needs that long neck to be able to get into the crevices and nooks and crannies in the carcasses that they are feeding on to ensure that they can pick off all the little bits that the other animals and predators cannot get to. So, similar structure, I guess, in terms of their neck, but different functions. So they've evolved differently, I think it's fair to say. Very good. Let us venture forth. Our plan is to head down towards the Mara River and take you along there for the last little bit of the drive. Okay. So while we head to the river, we are going to be sending you back to James and his lions. Oh, sorry, Vulture, you're going to have to find a new tree now.
Hello everybody, here we've got a much better view now of our lions. There they are, 2 lionesses, 4 little cubs. I would put them at roughly, I'm going to say 6 months or so, maybe a little bit older, maybe 7 months or so. Anyway, they don't seem to have killed like I thought they had. They don't look particularly full either, like I thought maybe they were. The cubs look relatively well fed. I don't know why they've moved down here, but I'm quite pleased that they have, because certainly if they don't do anything for the rest of this morning, we'll pop down here this afternoon straight away when we come down, and we'll see if they don't go on the hunt then. I'm quite pleased at the fact that they don't look very well fed. Let's just go along to the one that is fast asleep with her head down there, because I think she's got some quite interesting ears. And certainly the ear notches are the easiest way to identify these lions quickly, because of course the ear notches will change, so it's not a permanent way of identifying them. But this one's got a very, very mangled right ear. I'm not sure why they should be more mangled than the ears of the lionesses of the Nkuhuma pride. But they do seem to be like that, mostly, in this area. And I don't know why that should be the case. But you can see very, very flat cat sighting we have now. I think we'll probably spend another 10 minutes or so here, and then we'll head on and see what else we can find. I can't see anything around here now that they might potentially hunt, and so I think we'll go off and see what else we can find for the last little while of the show, and then come back here probably relatively soon before the drive, see if we can't pick up on them again, and then sit with them until they do something useful as the evening starts to fall. Now, if you're wondering why this focus on lions, we are in the migration season, which means our ultimate goal here is to tell the story of the migration through the eyes of the predators. And so while at Djuma we might not sit with flat cats for anything like that, as long as we sit with them here, Lioness has seen something. We will certainly be spending probably a little more time than you're used to with flat cats in this area. Alright, I'm going to just try and figure out what she's looking at, but I believe Scott has now got some birds that are behaving like birds at Djuma.
Well, we've got some great action unfolding here. We're hoping that we're going to be able to show you some of these vultures descending in on what looks like a fresh kill, but it looks like that one stopped halfway. So let's show you the action instead. The lieutenant of the vulture kingdom has just arrived on the scene. That is the individual that is now in control of this carcass. It's the lappet-faced vulture, the biggest of all the vultures in this area. And I mean, you can just see it is far, far bigger than both the white-backed vultures and the Ruppel's griffin vultures, who are also on the scene here. Now, I'm wondering who is responsible for making this kill. It looks like it's quite a small animal, and I'm guessing it may well have been a cheetah that we saw not too far from here yesterday. Oh, we've got a few other predators and scavengers not too far away, 2 black-backed jackals. They were initially feeding on this carcass when we arrived. All the vultures were standing down away from the carcass until that jackal ran off, and then they had their opportunity to come in and start snacking. And that'll be a husband and wife, those two. They form monogamous bonds, but I think they have already eaten their full. And it also explains, well, that the fact that the jackal are monogamous doesn't explain why that vulture was sitting alone in the tree earlier, but it was just waiting patiently nearby this kill. The vulture with the down feathers. Look at this, absolutely awesome. Still lots of meat here, and it just goes to show how important all the animals are within our ecosystem here, because these vultures have got a lot of work to do cleaning up this carcass and making sure the savanna doesn't lay strewn with rotting old meat. Not the prettiest of birds, the lappet-faced vulture. Another one coming in. Nice Davy. Another lappet-faced. Let's see now if these 2 lappet-faced don't have a fight amongst one another, because they are of equal size. Ooh, it's looking promising. No, maybe they're lovers. So this is a live safari, and it is also an interactive safari. We would love to hear from you. You can use the hashtag SafariLive to let us know whatever questions you may have. And for any of the silent viewers out there, whom I know there are a lot of you, why don't you just let us know who you are, how long you've been watching for. Even if it's not a question that you'd like to ask, it's nice to just know of some other people. Of course, we love to hear from the regular question senders, but like I said, we know there's a lot of you out there who simply enjoy watching, but rely on others to send through questions. So let us know if you are one of them. Well, it's been a morning full of action, and you guys have had the joy of bouncing between 3 vehicles, and it's very important that you take note of the fact that the safari experience that we can give you can be quite different to that of what you would expect to get when you come out and experience it for yourself. The fact, like I said, that there are 3 of us delivering you as much as we possibly can is one of the main reasons why it means we can deliver you probably more action than you would be able to see if you were stuck on a vehicle here in person. And the other thing we can do is we can invest time in sightings in the hope that something special will unfold. Whereas when you come out on safari, especially being a first or second timer, your guide often feels the need to try and show you as much as possible, and therefore it means you've got less time to invest in sightings. So a few interesting pros to the fact that you are sitting comfortably wherever you may be in the world, possibly at work. We don't mind if you watch Safari Live while you're at work. Your boss may say otherwise, but we don't mind. We won't tell anyone. Family, and then you could maybe get a big TV put up in your office, just have it airing all the time. We're going to send you back to Byron, and we're going to continue on towards the Mara River. Whap whap.
I couldn't agree more with you, Scott. It is important. We spoke about this yesterday and the day before, just taking our time in sightings and investing time in the sightings, and they pay off. And here we've still got the hyena activity. The vultures seem to have decided to rest a little bit. Now, I have never seen this before. Look at this. Vultures completely lying on their backs. There's a number of them. I've seen them lay down on their bellies before, like that one at the back. You can see it's laying on its belly, those two, but not on their backs. This is bizarre. Now, the only thing I can think is perhaps they're trying to get insects to potentially clean the wings. Dust bathing a little bit. But that is very interesting. Now, we were chatting earlier about the bones or the carcasses, and if it benefits the ground and the soil at all, or the vegetation. Now, I know some of you, I think Judy H, you mentioned something about bone meal that gets used for gardens and that. Yes, I know that, but again, I think that is used as a compost. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, isn't something added to that? But then also you sprinkle it across the garden, you water the garden. But some of these bones, when they do degrade, then there is a chance, or biodegrade, there is a chance that they definitely return nutrients into the soil at some point. But I don't think it's on the scale that compost does. And I'm just thinking of when I've seen carcasses around areas that carcasses have been in for a long time. The ground does not rejuvenate very quickly at all. It takes ages. The reason for that is because of all the feeding activity, all the predators around. A lot of the ground is disturbed, and it takes a very long time for the grass and plant material to recover and regrow in that area. So it may return some nutrients, but only in a specific spot. I don't think it benefits the soil as much as you would think it does. Also, if there's just a single bone in one place, it's difficult to say, but to an extent, it will add some nutrients back. Naturally, of course it would, but not in the sense that you are now going to get massive regrowth in that area because there's been a carcass there. From what I've seen in the past, it's actually the opposite, because a lot of the area is very disturbed from all the movement of predators moving around and feeding, vultures coming down. So that disturbed area takes a long time to actually recover. It is indeed coffee time. Some of you were wondering if I'm having a little coffee break, and perfect time to enjoy some coffee. Although for some reason, I don't know what I did this morning, but this coffee is not tasting as good as it usually does. Anyway, let's head over to James, the king of the Mara, and see what he's up to now.
Well, he's up to exactly what he was up to just before. He's sitting with lions. Lions are flat. Lions are looking around. Lions might go hunting. Lions might not go hunting. Lions might do nothing more than they are now. In fact, only one of them seems to be paying any attention to the world at large. The rest are dead to the world at large. What she's looking at is a zebra not too far behind us. In fact, there's a whole herd of them. See, the thing about leaving lions in this particular state is that if something comes close enough, there's no question that they'll go for it. But they're not enthusiastic about hunting. And if I look at her now, if you watch the way she's breathing, it says to me her stomach is full. But now we know lions in this area do not necessarily hunt for the sake of eating. They hunt on the instinct to kill a lot of the time. And so if the chance does arrive, she will almost certainly take it. But those animals would have to be pretty close and probably a bit easier to kill than a zebra for her to have a go from here. So almost looks a little bored while the rest of her colleagues lie down and snooze. Yeah, in fact, her belly's a lot fuller than I thought it was. Now, I wonder if she's not maybe pregnant. It's quite possible that the 4 cubs here are from the same litter. They look about the same age. And maybe their mother is the one who's fast asleep, not this one. Now, this one looks like she looks like she may have been lactating quite recently. She's certainly got quite a few flies knocking about on her nose. Alright, I think that we're going to pack it in with these lions, see what else we can find. We've only got about half an hour left of the show, and I think we'll come back here early this afternoon and see what we can find. Alright, let's go to Byron, who seems to have found himself his favourite sighting. I'm not sure what his favourite sighting is. Perhaps it's an impala.
We still got quite a bit of activity here. The vultures seem to have perked up a little bit and headed closer towards the carcass. But the hyena's still chasing them every now and then. It's amazing to hear this, the large wings of these vultures as they fly past. I see these vultures are definitely, dust bathing or anting and cleaning their wings. It's a way for them to clean their wings. Andy, you asked, why do the hyenas tolerate the vultures? I don't know, Andy. I have no idea. I think, nature's funny. I think it's because both these species... Oh no, that's terrible. Hold on a second. Crows, everyone. Now, that's what we were speaking about the other day. We're not meant to see crows around here, but there's a crow flying above us. There it goes. Let me try to see which one it is. I think it's a pied crow. Yeah, a pied crow. I suppose we can add that to the list. It is on the bird list. But the pied crow. Let me just see what they say in the bird app about it. But you see, it is a resident, but I think the crow is actually it's an alien. I think it is considered to be an alien. Not technically meant to be seen out here. Just trying to see if they see anything, if they say anything about the crows. I think they're now considered to be part of the bird list in southern Africa or across Africa. They are found just about everywhere, pied crows. Well, anyway, we've added it to our list now, but let's head across to Scott, who's got another bird. I wonder which one it is.
Well, I certainly cannot imagine what on earth this fish eagle is doing here, and if anything, from a distance, I actually thought it was a crow. And I am told Byron is not convinced they belong in South Africa. And I think some of them do belong there, but not all of them. I think certainly a few of them were stowaways. Now, I'm guessing what this fish eagle has done is it's found some remains of a carcass somewhere nearby, and that is why it's down on the ground here. They will, like most carnivorous creatures, make the most of whatever opportunities are available to them. And even though I've never seen them scavenging on a carcass. I wouldn't be surprised if they in fact do. They don't only hunt fish, in some areas they even hunt flamingos and other birds. But for now, I'm guessing it may have already eaten its full and is now just relaxing on the ground where it's fairly comfortable. I can't see whether its crop is full. A lot of the predatory birds have got an extra storage pantry where they can load up on extra meat when the going's good, and this sticks out kind of below their neck, but at the angle it's sitting at, I can't really see clearly whether it has in fact filled up its crop. But certainly the most bizarre sighting of a fish eagle I've ever had, just sitting in the middle of this vast open plain. Good. Well, we're going to continue along to the Mara River, where this fish eagle probably spends more of its time. We're not too far away from it, and I can see some vehicles stopped in the distance ahead of us, so there may be some interesting sightings waiting for us over there. I'm happy to hear a lot of you got back to us saying that you are grateful and appreciate the fact that we are in a position where we can invest time in sightings. And of course you can do that as a tourist when you come out here, but you'd probably have to rent your own vehicle. Most camps do provide that service if you'd like to ensure that you can do whatever it is you would like to whilst on safari. You just rent yourself a private vehicle, and that way the guide can cater specifically for your needs. However, if you don't do that and you're a seasoned safari goer and you get stuck with some first timers, then of course your guide is going to be in a tricky position where he has to cater for some rookies as well as some pros, which can be quite tricky for a guide to balance. Well, it sounds like Byron's hyenas and vultures are still going at it, so off you go to see what it is they're up to.
No, we're still sitting with these hyenas, but they, for some reason, they darted off. It's almost like they saw something, and here comes that crow. Oh, you can hear a terrible sound. Like I said, I think these crows are meant to be pests. They're not meant to be found in the natural environment or in the game reserves and that. So they are pests. There it sits regardless. So as I said, these hyena bolted off. Don't know what they thought they saw, but 3 hyena ran away. They're clearly very nervous, or still a bit nervous, thinking there might be lions around. I've been scanning, I haven't seen anything. And then as soon as they ran off, the vultures basically ran to that carcass. Vultures then started feeding, and the hyena ran back and chased the vultures off. But it's, again, they don't want to waste anything. Every little part of this carcass is being fed on. Whatever they can find or get to. Camper, you asked if the hyena dominance is passed through or passed down through birth. Yes, it is. So it's the queen is usually the alpha female in a hyena clan, a queen hyena, and then when she gives birth, she will have a princess, and that princess will then be looked after by the clan and will then most likely take over from that queen when she eventually dies, unless it's that young hyena is still too young. Then there will be another female in place that will take that role as queen if something happens to the I suppose you could call it the matriarch of the clan. But yes, it is passed down through birth. So speaking about these the royalty of the Queen and the Princess, let's head across to the royalty of the Mara, James himself.
I feel like that was a sort of thumbsuck link. The royalty and the princesses, let's go to the royalty of the Mara. Well, okay, Byron, I'll say thank you this time round. I think much more regal than I, standing at 5 feet and 8 inches, are these giraffe, standing substantially higher than that, some 4.5 meters in the case of a large bull. And I think that there's something very special, very peaceful about watching giraffe moving across a landscape like this. It really does give a real sense of the space that there is. I must say, from a very nice sort of warming dawn, it's turned to a rather blustery grey day. And I'm hoping that that will change by the time the afternoon rolls around. They are heading sort of towards the lions, but nowhere near a sort of dangerous place. Those two lionesses, I think, a bit full, and far too much else that is much easier to eat is on offer. This is found here. That is the southern giraffe. This is the Maasai giraffe. Because they necessarily speak different languages, but because they are different shades. They're very different shaped patches. You see what I mean by the space there? You see, because I think that they stand so far up above the ground, obviously, they're tall, when you get a perspective of their heads in relation to what's going on behind them, you just get an idea of the vastness of the area. There's mostly a group of young bulls. I think there are 1 or 2 cows, but mostly young bulls. This young bull seems to have spotted something that he doesn't like very much. There was a herd of wildebeest moving there. I wonder if he didn't spot a predator of some sort. No. I don't think he did. All right, let's go forward a little bit. There seems to be a nice big grouping of wildebeest up ahead. Yes, Sassy, I know what you mean. You say when you see giraffe and elephant, then you truly know you're in Africa. They are icons of the wilderness, aren't they? Along with lions, I suppose. And of course the giraffe, unfortunately for it, or rather fortunately, is not a member of the Big Five. And so, and that's why the Big Five, of course, is such a, I think, dreadful term to use. Because a giraffe is such an icon of a landscape like this. Right, let's just scoot along the road here. There's some nice herds. There's some nice herds. There are some nice herds. It's become my pet peeve at the moment, hearing plurals referred to as there is. I have a pet peeve all the time. That's my current one. I'm sorry about the wind again. It's difficult to hide a microphone that you're trying to speak through in a wind like this. I'm just going to stop under this tree here. Here we go. Daniel, as we stop under this tree, Rebecca's very cleverly found your question, and you say, what kind of trees are the rounded top trees in the Mara? Are you thinking a tree like this, Daniel? This tree is called Balanites aegyptica. I'm not sure what its common name is, actually. I'll have a look for you. But those are the most common ones that we find around here. Let me just quickly look it up for you. I don't know that they have it in this book. That's very distressing. They must do. Yes, it is. They do. It's called the desert date. The desert date. A slow-growing evergreen tree, which we know, often in dry bushland, woodland, grassland, and from sea level to 2,000 meters. Sandy or black cotton soil. So this is a black cotton soil. In other words, it is black. It's not full of cotton, but it's very clayey. It's very thick. It retains water a lot. And then to the left of the tree, of course, is a lilac-breasted rhoda. Yes, very nice. Now, these chaps are darker than the ones we get at Djuma. All of their colours seem to be just slightly darker. See how brilliantly he's balancing in the wind there? I think that's really very clever. Now, Byron, of course, has got a list going. He's trying to reach 100 birds in the next 2 weeks or so, and I believe he has another one.
Now the hyena is still standing guard over this carcass. We've got some interesting little birds flying around here, though. I wonder if we can see some flying closer to us. Some red-breasted swallows. Maybe Senzo, can you see where they... Senzo's extremely good at picking up birds in flight. Let's see, just above the tree. There we go, there we go. Well done, Senzo. Amazing. Red-breasted swallows. So we can add that to the list. Apparently I'm on 62. Now, I just saw some tweets yesterday that there was some confusion with the numbers, so when I get back I'll quickly sit and just have a look at the list and make sure there wasn't one being counted twice or anything. But Megan's says she's completely right. She's totally right, she says. Now, also we've been chatting about the carcass and the bones, what benefits from it, but I mean, we were touching on basically just how the ground and the vegetation benefits from the carcass, not necessarily the animals. Now, I know some of you were sending in questions and comments about, but other animals benefiting like herbivores. Yes, they do. Animals like some of the antelope species, giraffe is a big one that benefits from a carcass, because what they do is they will also go and feed on the bones. That is known as osteophagia. That's the eating of bone, and they do that to gain the calcium and the phosphorus that is in the bones. So that is for the nutrients. Yes, we know all of that, but we weren't necessarily touching on that. As I said, so many animals benefit from the carcasses, but we were chatting about how a carcass or how the bones affect the soil in a specific area, and from what I've seen is it takes a long time for an area to recover after a carcass has been there, because there's been so much destruction from the animals moving around over that area, a lot of disturbance, and it takes a long time for the vegetation to grow there again. It's been really interesting sitting here, and we, it's something that we don't get to see this that often. I don't know when last I saw this many vultures and hyenas interacting like this, so it's great. I'm going to sit here a little bit longer, but now Scott has managed to find a hyena in the Mara, and apparently it has also been feeding on something.
It certainly has been feeding, but what it's up to now, I'm not entirely sure. Because, I mean, surely it's not wanting to drink from this tiny little puddle. There was another hyena that had its bottom wallowing in that wallow before this individual came out. So maybe it's just sniffing around there. This looks like quite a young hyena. You can tell because it's still got a very pretty coat and long fur, whereas as they get older, the fur and the spots tend to disappear. And just like the hyena has disappeared right now, so can its spots. Morning, everyone.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Oh, great.
Good, good.
Keep up the good work, guys.
Ah, thank you so much for those kind words.
Big fans, big fans.
Oh, good.
Selling these safaris, do you get a cut of the price?
No, but our job is to try and sell not only the Mara, but all the wilderness destinations in Africa. So, as you can hear, we've got some fans that are in the flesh parked alongside us, along with all you guys watching abroad. And wonderful that we have some... Oh, morning! Very good, thanks. Yes, we've had a wonderful morning.
What did you find?
A serval was the highlight.
What?
A serval.
What is Savo? Savo is
So it's not often we get sandwiched by vehicles when we live, but so be it. We will ride that wave, and it has been wonderful driving around the Mara. A little bit different to the Sabi Sands in that we do pass more vehicles, and it's wonderful to chat to everyone along the way.
all right. We'll hear that on the next meeting.
John, you'd like to know, how does it feel now that the live TV shows are over? And to be honest, for me personally, it's taking a bit of getting used to, because I arrived 2 weeks before the first TV show, which was kind of, I hope, enough time for me to resharpen my Safari Live sword after having been out of the saddle for a year. And we've been focusing mainly on the TV shows and also just short segments where we go live to Facebook and or other platforms. So I'm a little bit out of sync with the slightly slower paced internet drives, but I'm loving being back, getting back into the rhythm of them. And there's more TV shows to come, and like I said, they are different. They're very different experiences for both the presenters or guides, as well as the cameramen, as well as for the team up in the final control. So there's perks to both, and we are relieved that the TV shows went off quite well, we think, and are looking forward to certainly doing more. But in the meantime, like I say, there's certainly a lot of perks to the internet shows. There's a lot less pressure on us all, so we can all breathe a sigh of relief. All right, well, it sounds like we're going to be sending you back to Byron and what sounds to be a very, very enjoyable with all those hyenas and vultures down there.
There's some really large vultures flying in and out of this area. I'm just having a look at some of the whiteback vultures, some of the bigger ones with full crops. Obviously got more food than the others. But look how clean that carcass has been picked. There's almost nothing left. Yeah, Shannon, it is not a very pleasant smell, to be honest. It's not too bad for the moment because there is a bit of a breeze, but how can I describe it? You all know James is a lot better at describing the smells than I am. There's a whiff of rotten meat, lion feces. There's a thicker stench in the air. There's no way of making it sound pleasant. There's a thick stench in the air. It's definitely not something that is for the faint-hearted, I think. What do you think, Senzo? The smell? Not good, huh? Senzo's shaking his head. Not good at all. I'm sure these hyenas are going to move off eventually because there's nothing really left for them to pick on. The vultures with their sharp beaks will be able to get in between those bones and really get the last little bits of meat. Campy, now I actually have no idea. You asked if the hyena tongues are rough or smooth. I don't know. I would assume they're also a little rough. I do think so. But I don't know to what extent. I don't know how rough. I know leopard and lions are tough. I've seen them licking carcasses and trying to clean kind of hair and open carcasses just by licking. But I don't know about the hyena. I would assume so. I would definitely assume they've got rough tongues. And but I just don't know how rough. It'd be interesting if anybody can find something on that. Let us know. But I'm sure it is also pretty rough. Starting to, so I was thinking that the cloud cover was going to burn off a bit, but it hasn't really. It is still overcast. Yeah, maybe that's the one, Senzo. I think you're right. That one hyena that is looking a little pregnant. I'm not sure. Possibly. It's a big belly. We'll keep an eye on her. We've been chatting about the rough tongues of the predators. Let's head to someone with a sharp tongue, Mr. James Hendry.
I'm just having a bit of a ruffle. Right, thank you, Byron. Here we have some buffalo spread out in front of us there. Very nice. I don't know if hyenas have rough tongues or not. I'm assuming that they probably do. They certainly need them to lick off the sinew from the bones that they eat. I think they probably do. I doubt they're too smooth. I wouldn't like to get any hyena saliva on me, I must say. Can't be that far off the disgustingness of, for example, the Komodo dragon. Ooh! What we have in front of us, Manu, if you look straight over the top of my head, you can see some white buttocks. Can you see the white buttocks? Whitish buttocks. That's it. Of the Coke's hartebeest. Very nice. Not very common, and certainly have been much less in evidence since the arrival of the migration. That's very nice. I can't tell you a great deal about a Coke's hartebeest at this stage. I still need to learn a bit more about them, I think. And then to the left of them we have a herd of elephants, quite possibly one of the ones that we saw coming down onto the Mara floor this morning before we began our drive. I must say there is a very different smell about this place at the moment, and about, different from any wildlife area that I've spent time in other than this. And that smell is of animal. In a lot of places, Djuma especially, if you walk around, the predominant smell is of the vegetation and the dust and the soil, and I guess a bit of petrichor, there's some rain. But here, at this time of the year, all I can smell is animal, and that's because there is just so much in the way of animal life knocking about on these plains. And when I say animal, I guess I'm trying to describe what it smells like. It's a little bit like a wildebeest smells specific. It smells different. I mean, this being around the buffalo makes it smell like a dairy, as I've said to you before. A wildebeest smells, I suppose, halfway between a goat and a horse. So that's the predominant smell around here. And there's so many of them that it kind of permeates the atmosphere. It really does. I suppose they've left their dung everywhere as well, which makes a big difference. And then there's the secretary bird, and quite possibly the same secretary bird we saw flying this morning. It landed in exactly this area. Looking for snakes and other morsels. I doubt it would be above scavenging off a bit of carcass if it found some. And in the background, more buffalo. Huge numbers of buffalo at the moment. Now I've come up this road hoping just to see if I couldn't perhaps spot the Agama pride. They sometimes hang around over here, but they don't seem to be around at the moment. And a sound that is not normally overwhelming, or certainly not the dominant sound, is that of buffalo bellowing. And because there's so many around at the moment, they're actually louder for once than the wildebeest. Alrighty everybody, we're going to go over to Byron to close the show. He's going to give us the last few minutes. But before I do that, remember we will be on the river cameras throughout the course of the day. So just watch your Facebook feed, and if something happens we'll go live there. And then we'll do the same again, of course, this afternoon. So thank you very much for joining us. Manu and I bid you a fond farewell from the Mara, and Scott, of course, and David. And we'll hand you back to Byron.
Thank you very much, James. And I think we're probably going to end off with these wonderful vultures waiting patiently to get a bit of this carcass. The hyena is still roaming around, just trying to pick off every last morsel they possibly can. But look at that hyena. Definitely. I'm trying to see if I can see any sign of... You know what? It does look like I can see teats on that hyena. So I wonder, I think that hyena might possibly be pregnant. Was it ghost chooser or ghost user? You asked what is the lifespan? Ghost chooser, the lifespan of hyena. Now I think the lifespan of hyena is possibly also around 15 to 18 years. I'm not sure now. Now I'm trying to think. I think it's somewhere around there. I will actually double check that when I get back to camp later and just find out exactly what I can get from some sources about the lifespan of hyena. But what a really wonderful, wonderful morning again. Bit of rain this morning on Djuma, which is always welcome. We had lions in the Mara. We had serval with Scott, which is amazing. We've had the hyena and vulture activity. The lions are still around. The males, we heard them calling. We saw them earlier. So there's still a lot going on right here in Djuma, as well as the Mara. And James mentioned the river cams too. So we'll see you all this afternoon again on our sunset safari. Don't forget to join us again. And thank you very much, James and Scott in the Mara, and the ladies in the final control, Rebecca and of course Megan. And again, happy birthday, Taylor. Hope you have a great day, and thank you all of the viewers. We'll see you later this afternoon. Goodbye and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.